Every Monday, I host a call with a group of online coaches that, on average, are doing about $153,000 a month. And we're actually in northern Michigan right now. I figured I'd take advantage of this beautiful view that we've got over the Bay Harbor Golf Course and Lake Michigan. It's just absolutely gorgeous right now, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about our last call that we hosted. There were some principles that we covered that I thought might be quite useful for you. So principle number one is never lose momentum. So I have a client of mine who, when he started with us, he was doing about 20K a month. Now he's consistently in the 200K a month range within the last 5 months. Now, for context, he's got a $50,000 offer and about $1,000 customer acquisition cost, which is very rare, but he's going on vacation for like a month and he asked me, should I shut down ads? You know, how should I kind of put the business on ice? Should I put the business on ice? Should I still be taking calls? And I just reminded him, like, you can obviously do whatever you want, but it's really, really hard in business and in life to gain momentum in anything. And so when you have it, cherish it, milk it for all it's worth, because while this opportunity is around for him right now, and those numbers are existing in his business right now, it's amazing, but we don't know what the future holds. And so given where he's at in his whole financial journey, he's 45 years old and doesn't want to be working for the rest of his life. And so I'm like, let's maximize the accumulation opportunity while we still have it. Who knows if the same opportunity is going to be around even next month, next year, next 5 years. So although it seems really cool now, we don't want to be so short-term focused that we get lulled into thinking that the opportunity is going to be around forever. So I'm always an advocate of milking an opportunity for as much as it's worth, full well knowing that it's not going to be around forever. So as I reminded him, strike while the iron is hot. And right now the iron is very hot and it's tough to get it hot. So we don't want to wait for it to cool down. And in fact, that little anecdote is one of the things that stuck with me. I shared with him one of the first personal development or success books that I ever read, believe it or not, was Donald Trump's Think Big and Kick Ass in Business and in Life. And the only real thing that stuck with me from that book was never lose momentum. Number two, and this is really an interesting one, is illnesses, accidents, and mistakes all stem from one source, and that is being effect to something or someone rather than cause over it. So I had a client that said he was dealing with some, minor health issues and some about his gallbladder. It doesn't really matter what the hell it was. He's fine, he's functioning, but bothersome. So one of the frameworks that I've learned from one of my mentors is that the physical body will manifest. So if something is happening in your life that you don't want to have happen, that means there's most likely something that we should be doing that we're not doing, or something that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. And so when this happens, we innately know this deep down. It's kind of like you probably already know things that you should be doing in your business. So we on a subconscious level really understand this. And so when we're basically doing things that we shouldn't be doing, or not doing things that we should be doing, there's this imbalance. And in order to balance that out, we try to stop ourselves from doing that activity. In other words, you might say we sabotage ourselves. And that can come in a number of different ways. That can come in the form of an illness, where we stop ourselves from doing something because we just can't because we're sick. Or a mistake where we screwed something up, spent too much on ads, we lost money, we made a poor financial decision, whatever it is. And so we do these things to stop ourselves from essentially misbehaving. And so I asked him, one of the first places that I look here is there somebody in your environment, a client, a family member, a team member, that you feel like is squashing you, making you feel smaller, making you feel stressed out? And he's like, yeah, I've got this client, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, cool. When did the gallbladder thing start? A month ago. All right. What happened a month ago? Oh, this client started doing X, Y, and Z, started being a pain in the ass. He's like, but this gallbladder thing's been around for like 2 years. I'm like, cool. When did it start 2 years ago? He thought back and he's like, around this time. I'm like, okay, was this client around? He's like, in fact, that's actually the time where we signed this client, and he kind of onboarded as a bit of a pain in the ass. Paired with, he has a bit of a seasonal business where in the summers it's traditionally slower, and he starts to feel a little bit more stressed out, a little bit more effect to the situation rather than cause over the situation. And so we went through, did you set, proper expectations with this client? Because he's kind of demanding above and beyond things. And he's like, no, I didn't really set those expectations. I'm like, have you had a conversation with this client to remind him of what the deal is between you guys and where essentially your scope ends? He's like, no, I haven't. And I'm like, well, that's why by you're letting him ride you around. You're being effect to him. You're being effect to this situation. And in fact, the seasonality of being in summer is essentially, although illogical and irrational from a practical standpoint, the fact that the season rolls around and you've got it in your mind that it's always tough, pair that with client being tough and you basically kind of taking it, well, you're going to try to stop yourself from that activity, from that behavior. And so what better way to do it than to pull in an illness? And I've had also numerous clients whenever they get, ill or something weird happens like that, I'm always looking at what is it that you're affect to right now? What is it that you're stressed out about? And let's move to cause over it. And so what I had him do is go through a process to clear what we call a resentment charge on the client, where you basically just discharge the emotional heaviness of the situation. And it allows you to go from, oh, this is tough, I feel affect to it, to, all right, I got this and I have an action item. And for him, the action item was to have a complete reset conversation with said client. And so he had a pretty solid realization on our call the other day. And he's like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. So he went and cleared the resentment charge, reached out to the client, scheduled a call. He's going to be listing out all of the things that he's going to be basically putting in place in terms of rules and kind of doing almost a reset call with this client and getting himself to a place to where like you can't care if the client leaves. And so he cleared a fear charge on the client leaving, which again, I explain in detail what I'm talking about in this book. But essentially, it's just getting yourself to where you're seeing things in a way that doesn't prevent you from doing the things that you know you should be doing, which is why our clients' businesses grow the way that they do. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And so he scheduled a call with this client and he's going to get on there and he's going to basically be like, look, if we're moving forward, it's going to be under these rules and these rules only. You cool with that? If not, I totally understand. Appreciate you. Much love. And so that alone, you can see in somebody's face when they get all, aha moment. So he's like, oh shit, I see how there's a direct correlation of timelines. So I have a lot of examples of this, but it's one of those things where the illness, the accident, the mistake, it's all a symptom of something else that you're stressed out about, that you're affect to. And the first place we're looking is there a family member? Is there a team member? Is there a client? Is there somebody else that you just feel like is a pain in the ass that you can't do anything about? So I thought that was a good reminder for you because so many people misdiagnose and just say, oh, it's just I have a gallbladder thing. Like maybe you do, but let's make sure that it's not a psychosomatic thing. Most of the time it's a psychosomatic thing. Like I don't get sick ever. And the reason I don't get sick is because I make sure that anytime something comes up where I feel like I'm stressed out, like I'm going affect to something or someone, I say, how can I move to just slight cause over this? How can I make sure I'm pushing on it a little bit more than it's pushing on me? And my wife does this, I do this, it's just how we live. And what makes that a lot easier is just discharging the emotional heaviness so that you can actually follow through and take action on what you know you need to do. And that leads perfectly into our next little lesson is people only fuck with you if they think they can. So we had a client on there that it was his first boardroom meeting ever with us. And I had actually just gotten off our one-on-one private initiation call with him prior to that boardroom call. And so parlaying off my previous point, I had used the example that I said, I just got off this initiation call with this client and his name is Chase. So I just got off this initiation call with Chase. And I said, I very, very clearly outlined the rules of engagement to where Chase has nowhere to go in terms of fucking with me or trying to pull one over on me. And if he does, he's now had this experience of being on this call with us just now. He had that aggressively reinforced. And it's not because I'm trying to be some sort of a tyrant. It's just you have to draw very, very clear borders and you have to make sure that the client understands what those borders are. And not just a client, this could be a team member, this could be a friend, this could be a family member. And so we have a communication framework that kind of the big idea of it is if I have a communication, we'll call it green square. I say to you, green square. What most people do is they say green square and they assume the other person or people that they're communicating that to knows what green square is. And then the communication's over. But communication is a cycle. So if somebody says green square and they get back red circle, meaning they said do this task exactly this this way, and then team member does task but screws it up. The team member obviously didn't understand the original communication. That's because the originator of the communication, you, the trainer, the CEO, when giving the task, didn't take the time to say, here's green square. Can you please repeat back to me green square so I make sure that we're on the same page? And so in our company, we call that green squaring something. So we're hyper clear to where there's zero room for fucking this up. And so we have a very, very clear, here's how this goes, rules of engagement. Please repeat them back to me so I make sure that we're totally on the same page so we never have to have this conversation again. So back to our previous little lesson, that's what that other client's gonna do with his client on this relaunch call, is gonna say, here's the very clear rules, repeat them back to me, we're all in agreement, we sign, we're cool, we never have to have this discussion again. And that's a huge way of actually increasing your profit, because you're increasing your efficiency, because you're not going to get the problem clients anymore. If you really green square things, if you really set expectations properly right out of the gate, and you make sure that you're crystal clear without a shadow of a doubt, you won't get people fucking with you, and they won't think they can. They will have nowhere to go. You've essentially boxed them in, and it's for their benefit, right? You've boxed them in for their benefit, because they're only coming to you because they need help with something. They need your guidance and assistance to get a result. And if they fly off the handle, go out in left field, start trying to fuck with you in some way, they can't get the result, and they're going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to cost you time, your team time. And so that's one of the non-sexy, boring ways that we help our clients improve their efficiency, which ultimately improves their profit, is by making sure that the boundaries and rules and regulations and everything with their team, their clients, their family, everybody's on the same page so that there's no misunderstandings. Next lesson from this last call was, you want to make sure that you're focusing on the small hinge that swings as big a door as humanly possible. So there's so many things that we could all be doing in our businesses, in our lives. There's so many ways that we can spend our time. What we want to be able to do and get better at, and what I work with my clients on, is identifying the right thing to focus on that's going to create the outsized results. The one thing that we can focus on right now that's going to move the ball down the field the most. And again, this leads back to the efficiency thing. Efficiency and profit are synonymous. Profit is an efficiency metric. If you don't have a whole lot of profit, it's because your machine is very inefficient. Your business is very inefficient. And it's these little seemingly intangible inefficiencies that are a huge opportunity that everybody else is trying to basically solve with a new funnel or something like that. And unfortunately, if you operate from an inefficient mental capacity, your business is inefficient, your financial structure is inefficient. It won't matter how many strategies or tactics from sales and marketing that you actually use. You're not going to have a whole lot left over in the bank, because your thought process and how you're approaching it is fat and bloated. So you might have a big top line, but not a very big bottom line. And that's how my clients and I get richer every single month, even though we're not all doing $1 million a month. You don't need to do $1 million a month to become a millionaire and get rich. It's way less sexy with what I'm sharing with you in this video. I totally get it, but it works and it will make you rich. So we want to become enthusiastic as hell about being efficient, focusing on plugging all of the holes in the bucket, because we can take the biggest, most powerful fire hose in the world to fill that bucket. But if it has holes everywhere, communication holes, system holes, thinking holes, you're just going to have a whole bunch of new leaks. And everybody thinks that the game is about getting good at constantly plugging holes and leaks. Well, if they never happen in the first place, you don't have to hire the teams or build the systems to maintain this bucket, because the bucket was built with no holes. And when you do that, you're virtually untouchable. There's no holes in the bucket. There's no leaks. Something to think about. Next point, if you have something that's working in your business or in your life right now, you need to document it. I have my clients do what we call the record month formula when they have a record month, and that is a relatively comprehensive template that they fill in that basically takes the inventory of everything from marketing, sales, operations, team, personal habits, everything that we can to take a snapshot of what were we doing during this particular month so that we can do it again. So my client from my first point, who was thinking of taking some time off, he recently made a couple tweaks that we worked on that got his customer acquisition cost, I think it was cut by like 68% or something like that. And so, yeah, we focus on, some copy angles and whatnot. It was actually another boardroom member of ours who is one of the most sought after media buyers and conversion rate optimization guys in the world who actually suggested this on a boardroom call like 3 weeks ago. And it cut his acquisition costs by like 68%. And so I'm like, that's all fantastic. What you need to understand now is that we need to snapshot everything that's going on in your life right now, do more of what's working, and don't stop it. So we want to milk as much as we possibly can out of our existing successful system before we think we need to add more successful systems. And we don't want to go off and test new ideas when, in his case, he has a $50,000 lifetime value and a $1,000 client acquisition cost. There's no need to go test random other shit. You fucking turn up the dial on that 50x ROAS machine and you milk it until you can't anymore. He just got so caught up year after year just testing, tweaking, trying, testing, tweaking, trying. And a large part of why he was stuck at 20K a month and how he pretty much 10x'd his business within like his first 30 days with us was because we just got him laser focused, cleared all of the fears of, deleting certain things, shutting other things down, and just cutting all of the fat out. And now it's just keeping him on that track because it's so easy with new fancy cool fucking things that come out to get distracted. And so that's part of what we do and why we meet every single week is to make sure that we are staying on the track, staying the path, because as creative, visionary people, it's so easy to get pulled off track. And so that's why everything that we do is to keep everyone on that straight line. And the final point here is fundamentals win championships and will make you a millionaire. One of the winningest football coaches in all history is Vince Lombardi, and he started every single season with his players who came out of college. They were all Americans. They had played the game their whole lives so far. He started every single season by holding up a football and saying, "Gentlemen, this is a football." John Wooden, the winningest college basketball coach in history, started every single season. All these guys were high school All-Americans, went to UCLA, to be coached by the great John Wooden. John Wooden started every single season teaching his players how to tie their shoes. And the fact of the matter is, tying shoes and reminding ourselves what a football is not sexy. It's not fun. It's not interesting, but it's what wins championships. And the sooner that you realize that, the better off you're going to be. Because most likely, if you're already have successful clients, you have a successful offer, you know how to get leads, you know how to close deals, you're making some profit in your online business, you've got 99% of everything that you need. Most likely, you're just lacking clear fundamentals. Fundamentals of mental focus, fundamentals of business efficiency, and fundamentals of financial structure. Most likely. Everybody thinks they're the exception. You're probably not. And that's a good thing. It means your 7-figure business, your 8-figure business is much, much closer than you think. But we need to get back to basics and fundamentals, myself included. When things start going fucky, when things start going awry, I go all the way back to basics. Getting clear on who's my target avatar, right? What do they want? What are they struggling with? Am I solving their problems, or am I working on what's interesting to me, what I think should be the thing? Am I tracking my numbers? Am I doing the inputs that are required mathematically to get the outputs that I want? So we set our clients up in a tracking system to where it's mathematically impossible to not hit their profit goals. Because if you already have successful clients, there's a game of ratios. There's an ad spend to client ratio. There's an ad spend to profit ratio. There's an ad spend to booked calls ratio if you sell via booked calls. And it's quite simple. If your main traffic driver is advertising and you do the math and you take the ratio of ad spend to profit, and you find out that it takes you, for simple math, $1,000 in ad spend to make $1,000 in profit. If that's the exact numbers, well, if you want to make $30,000 in profit this month, then you should be spending $30,000 on ads. That's $1,000 a day. This is one of the things that we did with Justin Saunders, my client, that literally tripled his business almost overnight. He had a comfort level of ad spend at like $300 a day, and we did the math, and all of his conversion rates were cool. The business was relatively efficient enough enough to turn on the fire hose on the top of the funnel. And I'm just like, well, based on what you tell me your goals are, we need to be spending $1,000 a day on ads. He's like, I've never done that. What if I lose it? I'm like, well, you can always turn it off. First, I'd clear fear charge, realize that those fears and those thoughts, they're not you. They're just your mind trying to keep you in your comfort box. So let's clear that fear charge. Let's spend. It's the same thing we did with Roderick that took him from 20K a month to 250 some odd K a month. And this is what took Justin from 18K a month to he's averaging now around 400K a month. And it's just a matter of doing the math and being hyper clear on those numbers. So that's why we set our clients up in our tracking system. And it becomes real straightforward on diagnosing where to focus, why to focus on that, how to focus on it. And then we can talk about, if it's a matter of conversion rate from calls booked to calls showed, and that becomes the constraint, let's work on that constraint. And then we can brainstorm or use some of our bag of tricks on increasing show rates and what is the psychology and the belief system that the prospect needs to have in order to show up after they've booked the call. What is that journey and sequence like? But we make sure that we're focusing on that because, for example, if we focus on client show rate that's 30% and we can get it to 60%, which would still be relatively low, and all the other things stayed equal, the business doubles, right? We don't have to work on anything else. We just got to keep everything else running as it is. So many times I have people that, gauge their ad spend based on how they feel. Stupid. Or gauge their team's performance based on how they feel or how annoyed they are with their team, which, we want to take that into consideration. But most likely that annoyance that you're feeling with your team is a deep inherent knowingness that you haven't been the best leader for them. You haven't been the best example. You haven't clearly defined and communicated and green squared the right systems for them. And you're expecting them to care about your business as much as you do, which is silly. Most likely it's not them being dumbasses. Most likely you just are frustrated with yourself. And that's okay. But the faster that you realize that the truth is when you point one finger out, 3 point back at you, it's about taking full responsibility, being the leader that you want your team to be, that you want your clients to be, and being the example. And to be very clear, I'm not perfect at this. And part of the reason why I created this business is to help myself reinforce these concepts, because we retain and apply by a factor of like 5 times that which we teach versus that which we hear. So I hope those lessons were valuable for you. If you want a copy of this book so you can get your mind right, grab it in the description, find me on Instagram, DM me Bulletproof, or just watch the video that YouTube's got lined up for you right here, and I'll see you in the next one.